I entered quite struck by the Sisters of Service motto, I have come to serve. And nursing was my whole life, and nursing is serving, hands-on serving. But I really never articulated service or even what our charism was until many years ago I read an article called In the Service of Life. She described how serving is different from helping. Helping is based on inequality. It is not a relationship between equals, and people feel this inequality. When I help, I have a feeling of satisfaction. When I serve, I have a feeling of gratitude. So I really am grateful for the motto, I have come to serve and to be a sister of service. Amen.
Since 1922, you Sisters of Service have been pioneers in the Canadian Church. Your motto, I have come to serve, has been experienced and valued over these 100 years. Your founder, Catherine Donnelly, was acknowledged as one of the top 10 people who helped shape the Canadian Church. Let us raise our glasses to the Sisters of Service and this 100 years and to Catherine Donnelly and all that she brought.
From the Register's top 10 people who helped shape the church in Canada, Canada's Catholic heroes, Catherine Donnelly, born 1884, died 1983. Born in Simcoe County, Ontario, as one of 7 children, Catherine Donnelly was to live to the ripe age of 99. During that near century, she would oversee the founding and evolution of the Sisters of Service, a truly Canadian creation.
Catherine Donnelly was the daughter of Irish immigrants. She was raised on a farm. So this is late 19th century with certainly a hard life and brought up with an Irish Catholicism that was traditional. The church was part of their lives. And when her mother died, she had to assume financial responsibility of the family from her early 20s. But her real vocation was teaching. She and her friend decided to go out to Alberta. Now this is at the end of the war. In the West, they were looking for teachers. But when they arrived in southern Alberta, they were only teaching for 6 weeks before the flu epidemic had closed the schools. Catherine Donnelly looked around and realized that there was no religious faith, or particularly the Catholic faith, which she called a treasure, because the church was establishing in the larger centers.
Here were these immigrants who had just come in, trying to eke out a living on the prairies and experiencing lack of support from a parish or from a church and from the clergy, and the religious were mainly in the cities. So I think she saw that as a compelling reality, and God gave her the grace to say, what can I do about it? Where do I fit in all of this?
The founding of a Catholic order, a new Catholic order, is an enormous event, an important event in the life of the church.
It was also an extraordinary time when we were faced with these huge levels of immigration. When Catherine Donnelly gets going, you've got this wave coming of really refugees from the First World War. The Ukrainians, the Poles, all of these people that were coming into the Western Canada at the time. You had to have a new mode, a new way of doing things.
It's 100 years of dedication, achievement, and cheerful service for those most abandoned, for the love of Canada and God, of course.
Meet the Sisters of Service of Canada. Join them on their journey of remembrance and prayer leading up to August 15th, 2022, the 100th anniversary of the community's ministry throughout Canada and the 100th anniversary of their foundress, Catherine Donnelly, entering the Sisters of Service as the first sister on August 15th, 1922.
To capture this essence, I would like to quote from Michael, one of our residents at Presentation Manor, who has just read To Do and to Endure by Jean Beck. Among the many things that struck me about the story the book tells,
first is the challenging physical and financial conditions that early sisters had to struggle with. Inadequate buildings, long distances, uncertain transportation, never enough money, and so forth. But somehow they managed to serve people very successfully. The second thing is the profoundly spiritual dimension, so obvious in the life of Catherine Donnelly, her collaborators, and her successors. My gratitude to you, your fellow sisters, both past and present, Sister Joan,
for your sterling example of what a life of loving service to others really means. And now I invite us to once again...
Catherine Donnelly intended the Sisters of Service as a breakthrough in how women religious served the Church and the people of God. As with a few women religious innovators in the US and Australia, Catherine wanted her community members to be able to serve the needs of pioneer Canada no matter the hardship. This required a new way to dress, away from the cumbersome robes of the day, and a new way of life, away from heavily regulated convent life to living alone or with one or two others. Beyond these outward expressions of change, Catherine sought to define a new charism of service that would include respect for differences in others, whether they be Catholic or Protestant or no faith at all. The most important value for Catherine was that of listening, of being open to others' points of view, a kind of reciprocal sharing of the journey with all they served.
She wanted to be in public schools, so it was beyond just the Catholic world always for her. She broke through the boundaries of just the Catholics staying with the Catholics. It was always to embrace everyone.
Catherine Donnelly wrote volumes and volumes of letters describing the charism, describing her vision of what they were meant to live as women religious. And the sisters that I have met have modeled this kind of reciprocal give and take with me, with everybody I see them with. They are learning and they are teaching all at the same time, as we should with other friends that we have or people that we want to walk with. Catherine Donnelly wanted to be with the people, to respect them, to learn from them, to evoke from them what they could give to the sisters and in so doing, learn how they were the compassion of Christ.
I've lived in Canada for over 50 years, and this is my first encounter with the Sisters of Service. The thing that was quite striking about them, especially in this context, was their eagerness to listen. It's a kind of developed gift to others that they can bring. And that's what they did, that's what they do. And among those here who have been helped by that personally is myself.
The values of respectful listening were bywords of Catherine's leadership philosophy. When she died in 1983, a new understanding of her impact on the sisters and the world at large was well underway. In the 1960s, there had been the Second Vatican Council. Pope John XXIII and then his successor, Pope Paul VI, convened a 3-year conference of thousands of clerics and lay observers to look at how the Church could update to serve the new realities of modern life. Vatican II reform documents outlined how ecumenism and interfaith understanding could herald a new way to coexist peacefully and respectfully with people of different faiths and no faith. Living and ministering ecumenically, according to foundress Sister Catherine Donnelly, had always been understood as a cornerstone of the Sisters of Service approach to mission.
Sister Catherine Donnelly wrote the little booklet called Ecumenism Blossoms. And that ecumenism was certainly a seed planted by Sister Catherine Donnelly from the very start of the immigrants coming over. If wearing of the cross gave rise to objection, just remove it. She said, you don't need to have sister written on your certificates. The more important thing was service.
It was how she saw the church moving. She was not only a witness to Vatican II, she was one of the people who was acting out what would eventually become the wisdom of Vatican II in terms of working with other people of other denominations, other faiths. She embodied what was truly to come in the future.
I've sometimes been asked, so what kind of work do you do for the church? And I always smile and then I say, well, you may be surprised. I don't really work for the church as you understand the institutional church. If we understand church as the people of God, then oh yes, I'm definitely responding to the people of God.
Catherine Donnelly did represent a different type of woman religious, and that was why the 94 women that entered the Sisters of Service in the first 6 years, there's only a third of them actually made first vows, because these women realized, that's not the life I want, because it was more of an independent life, and their communities are 2 or 3 people, and sometimes just 2 people in the smaller communities. But the ones that made the vows, all these women had the same ingredients. They did have a spirit of adventure, just as she did. And they also had an innate feeling for the people, and were as poor as the people. So they weren't young girls out of high school. They were all seasoned women who had worked in offices, nurses, teachers. They wanted people who could think for themselves. They were to live with the people. Some of them were just as smart and as tough as Catherine Donnelly, and that's what she liked about them. They had a backbone.
Catherine Donnelly's vision of being present to others as an essential part of the life of a sister of service actually called forth care in others. And this mutuality really built Christian community. We're all in this together. That's what was alive back in those days. We're all in this together. We need each other. And that care that being of service to each other, that's the work of God. That's the gospel.
The CWL decided to help the Sisters of Service financially as they began in 1922. It's interesting how our histories kind of connected one another all along. First of all, service. The charism from the Sisters of Service is a big, big part of the Catholic Women's League. And I like the way they would dwell on being present to the times, present to the issues of the day. And this is so important for us to think about in the Catholic Women's League.
Catherine Donnelly had a special connection to the Sisters of St. Joseph of Toronto, who had welcomed Catherine's sister, Mary Loretto Donnelly, now called Sister Justina, as a member. And then, from 1922, the St. Joseph Sisters provided the Sisters of Service with administration and training over the first 6 years of SOS existence. It was the beginning of a friendship that would flourish throughout the SOS 100 years.
Father Daly, Redemptorist, was asked to work with our community in the early years. It was important to have a male figure with a hierarchical church. And he was the organizer, he was the one that teamed up and pulled it together. Catherine wasn't too interested in administration, coming to our headquarters. She was very passionate about teaching, about serving others, going out and being sent out among the people, those who are in need.
Catherine's incredible spirit of strength and determination, her readiness to be courageous and daring and bold and moving out to places others have not gone. Once she was there in the West, where she felt really drawn and called, her deep spirit was to be truly present to the people, building Christian community through the children. That was her vision.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Margaret. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
We are celebrating your 100th birthday, 100 years of life.
Oh my goodness.
And at the same time, you're leading us into the 100th anniversary of the whole Sisters of Service community. And when you think of those two, your life, the community's life, we realize there's so much history in all of that. And also, along with history, just all kinds of memories and really significant stories.
We have that nice display here. We have your journey, your missionary journey. For example, your first mission was Rycroft.
There was a field between our house and school. And you know, Sister CD, she loved teaching, and teaching was very important to her. And sometimes her window in her school, her room would be open, and we could hear her pounding the instructions into the children, you know. Her voice was very loud.
I like your memory of CD, and I have one as well. The year that I was studying in Rome, CD wrote me a letter, pages and pages, that big writing, you know. And I shared my letter with the group, and you know what they said? They were so astounded that my foundress was writing to me. They couldn't believe it, yes, that this was the foundress of our community, and she was writing to me about what I was studying, and so proud of it.
She was very close to us.
Ready for this?